Welcome to this video where we will explore the Diabeloop-Insight system based on the CARES paradigm. We will discuss how Diabeloop calculates and adjusts the automated insulin delivery when it reverts back to manual, specific education tips and sensor issues, and how it shares data. After that, we will go over Diabeloop's official indications and software updates. 1. How Diabeloop works based on the CARES paradigm. 1.1. Calculate. The Diabeloop-Insight system operates on a unique calculation algorithm that takes into account various factors to determine insulin delivery. Here are the key aspects of the calculation process. The system delivers microboluses of insulin every 5 minutes based on predicted glucose levels, the set total daily insulin dose, weight, and average number of carbohydrates consumed per meal. During startup, half of the total daily dose of insulin is allocated to basal insulin, while the other half is allocated to meal insulin. The target glucose range can be adjusted between 100 and 130 mg per deciliter, or 5.6 and 7.3 millimol per liter. Autocorrection boluses are administered every 5 minutes, among other scenarios, when the glucose level is predicted to exceed 180 mg per deciliter, or 10 millimol per liter. During autocorrect boluses, basal insulin decreases. If the glucose level is predicted to fall below the hypoglycemic threshold, basal insulin is paused, and rescue carbohydrates are recommended. The system incorporates both short-term and long-term learning algorithms. The short-term self-learning algorithm analyzes trends over the past 2 to 3 days, while the long-term algorithm considers trends over the past 3 to 6 weeks. Diabeloop also features a unique meal management algorithm, which involves recommendations for administering the meal bolus. Here are the key aspects of the meal management algorithm. In some cases, the system divides the meal bolus into 2 administrations based on sensor glucose levels and the meal type. In the case of normal glucose levels, the first part of the bolus is given immediately, and the second part is administered after 30 minutes. For high-fat meals, the second part is administered after 60 minutes. If hypoglycemia is predicted, the second part of the bolus is delayed and given after 90 minutes. If hypoglycemia is detected at the start of the meal, the system gives the bolus as a single administration. Additional autocorrect boluses may be given if necessary. In situations where hypoglycemia is predicted at the time of the second bolus may be withheld. After a meal, basal insulin is replaced by autocorrected boluses, which typically last for a maximum of 3 hours. 1.2. Adjust. In Diabeloop, you have the ability to adjust various parameters to personalize your insulin delivery. Here are the parameters you can modify. Target value, the desired glucose level. The default value is set at 110 mg per deciliter or 6.1 millimol per liter, but you can adjust it between 100 and 130 mg per deciliter or 5.6 and 7.2 millimol per liter. Aggressiveness at meals determines the amount of insulin delivered at meal times. The default value is 100%, and you can set it between 50 and 200%. Adjusting this parameter allows you to have more or less insulin during meals, similar to adjusting the carbohydrate ratio in other automated insulin delivery systems. Aggressiveness in hyperglycemia controls the response to high glucose levels. The default value is 100%, and it can be adjusted between 59% and 174%. Increasing or decreasing this parameter affects the frequency of autocorrection boluses. Aggressiveness in normoglycemia modulates basal insulin delivery during normal glucose levels. The default value is 100%, and you can adjust it between 43 and 186%. Modifying this parameter makes the modulation of basal insulin more or less aggressive. Hypoglycemia threshold determines the glucose level at which the system recommends rescue carbohydrates and adjusts basal insulin delivery. The default value is 70 mg per deciliter or 3.9 millimol per liter, but it can be set between 60 and 85 mg per deciliter or 3.3 and 4.7 millimol per liter. Total daily dose. This is the main setting to fine-tune the global glucose management by the system. It should be reduced in case of too frequent hypoglycemia, or on the contrary, it may be increased in case of too frequent hyperglycemia, postprandial or fasting. Note that while you can modify the total daily dose of insulin between 8 and 90 units per day, frequent adjustments may affect the long-term auto-learning of the system. So it is recommended to avoid frequent changes, and by steps of no more than 10%. In addition to the parameters mentioned earlier, Diabeloop offers additional modes to accommodate specific situations. Activity mode. This mode is designed for physical exercise. When enabled, the target value, as well as the hypo and hyperglycemia limits, are adjusted to better suit the demands of sports activities. The target value and limits are increased by 70 mg per deciliter, or 3.9 millimol per liter. If necessary, earlier rescue carbohydrates will be recommended. The duration of this mode is adjustable within a 0 to 24-hour range. After the activity, Diabeloop will slowly lower the target value back to the normal target value. How quickly this happens depends on the intensity of the sport you set. When exercising at lower intensity, basal insulin will resume faster after the activity than when you exercise at higher intensity. Zen mode. If you prefer not to be disturbed by notifications or alarms, you can activate the Zen mode. The aim is to avoid hypoglycemia and also at the same time to bother you as little as possible with the need to eat rescue carbohydrates. During Zen mode, the target value is increased by 10 to 40 mg per deciliter, or 0.6 to 2.2 millimol per liter. The duration of Zen mode can be adjusted within a 3 to 8 hour range via the settings. When starting with Diabeloop, you need to enter your total insulin dose, weight, and the average number of grams of carbohydrates you consume per standard meal. You may enter 3 standard meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. These parameters can be edited later if needed. However, there are certain parameters that the algorithm calculates and cannot be adjusted. These include the basal insulin rate, carbohydrate ratio, insulin sensitivity, and duration of insulin action. In the setup, you are required to enter a safety basal profile in the DBLG handset, but this is only used in manual mode. The hyperglycemia limit is fixed at 180 mg per deciliter or 10 millimol per liter. 1.3 Revert. If the connection to the insulin pump or glucose sensor is lost for more than 30 minutes, including during the sensor warming up period, the system will return to manual mode. You can check the connection status in the system status screen, and if it shows busy searching, it means the connection is not established. While theoretically, the connection should be maintained within a 2-meter range or 3.3 feet, it is recommended to keep your handset as close to your body as possible for reliable communication with the glucose sensor and insulin pump. In crowded places like concerts or festivals, you might experience more connection problems. In that case, you can activate privacy mode to maintain a stable connection between your phone, pump, and sensor. In manual mode, there is no suspend for low function available. The basal insulin delivered in manual mode is referred to as the basal safety profile, and you have the ability to adjust it directly from your handset. Additionally, if your handset is still connected to the pump, you can give another bolus. Once the connection to the pump or sensor is re-established, the system will automatically resume auto mode. 1.4. Educate. When starting an automated insulin delivery system like Diabeloop, there are general education points applicable to all automated insulin delivery systems, as well as education points specific to Diabeloop. Let's go over them. For general education in automated insulin delivery systems, please refer to the generic module. These include the following key points. Use fewer carbohydrates to correct hypoglycemia. Consider an infusion set problem if blood glucose levels remain high for an extended period without an apparent reason. If in doubt, change it out. Trust the automated insulin delivery system and let it do its work. Give a meal bolus approximately 15 minutes before eating. Activate the sports mode 1 to 2 hours prior to engaging in exercise. Temporarily stop insulin delivery if you disconnect the pump for more than 15 minutes. Respond to system alarms promptly. Disable automatic updates on your mobile phone to avoid disruptions. Seek peer support for additional guidance and insights. Now let's focus on the specific education points for Diabeloop. During startup, half of the total daily dose of insulin is allocated to basal insulin, while the other half is allocated to meal insulin. If this allocation doesn't align well with your actual insulin needs, it's recommended to adjust the total daily dose of insulin accordingly. If you typically use a smaller amount of bolus insulin compared to basal insulin, for example, 30/70% if you follow a low-carb diet, increasing the total daily dose of insulin by 5 to 10% can be beneficial. On the other hand, if you typically use a larger amount of bolus insulin compared to basal insulin, for example, 70/30% if you consume a higher amount of carbohydrates, reducing the total daily dose of insulin by 5 to 10% is advised. It's advised to enter your meals 15 minutes before the meal, although the actual insulin bolus will only be given 6 minutes before the meal. Don't forget to validate the insulin bolus at that time, or the insulin will not be given. Keep the handset close to your body and charge it overnight. If the battery is running low and you cannot charge it immediately, enable the power saving mode. Have rescue carbohydrates on hand and be familiar with the amount of carbohydrates they contain, for example 5, 10, or 15 grams, for quick and easy administration. Adjusting the total daily insulin dose is the most effective parameter for fine-tuning the Diabeloop algorithm. However, avoid making frequent adjustments as it resets long-term learning. You can enter carbohydrate information either through the bolus calculator or as rescue carbs. If you choose the latter option, the system will not provide additional insulin for the carbohydrates consumed. You can enter past and future meals and sports activities. Even if you forgot to enter a meal or activity, it's still beneficial to input it later for long-term learning by the algorithm. Diabeloop offers 2 additional modes. Zen mode, which reduces disturbance from hypoglycemia alerts, and privacy mode, which prevents data transmission to your loops. If you didn't have a chance to announce your sporting activity in advance, you can use Zen mode to receive less insulin temporarily and prevent hypoglycemia during exercise. However, note that Zen mode won't suggest rescue carbohydrates when your blood glucose levels are borderline low during exercise, which are necessary to avoid hypoglycemia. Alternatively, using the activity mode will provide rescue carbohydrate suggestions. In cases where your battery is running low or the mobile network signal is suboptimal, it's advantageous to activate the energy-saving mode through the settings. After a meal and during autocorrect boluses, the basal insulin level decreases, as per the unique behavior of the Diabeloop algorithm. In your loops reports, the total daily insulin dose is divided into a percentage for basal insulin and a percentage for bolus insulin. The autocorrection boluses are added to the bolus percentage, which means a relatively higher bolus percentage is frequently observed in the reports. By familiarizing yourself with these education points, you will have a better understanding of how to optimize the Diabeloop system and manage your diabetes effectively. 1.5. Sensor. Diabeloop utilizes the Dexcom G6 sensor for glucose monitoring. In case you have doubts about the sensor's readings, it is recommended to perform a finger prick test for verification. If there is a significant discrepancy between the sensor glucose reading and the finger prick measurement, you may consider calibrating the Dexcom G6 sensor. However, it is important to calibrate only when your glucose levels have been stable and within the target range for the past few minutes. 1.6. Share. With Diabeloop, you have the option to share insulin and glucose data with your healthcare provider and family members via your loops and Dexcom Follow. Real-time monitoring of glucose values is possible for both parties. The DBLG-1 handset remains continuously connected to your loops through its built-in SIM card, eliminating the need for manual data retrieval. Data transmission from the handset to the Your Loops cloud occurs every 5 minutes via Wi-Fi and 4G provided by the SIM card. Please be mindful that automatic data upload may consume your data plan. If Wi-Fi or 4G coverage is unavailable, such as during a flight, the data will not be forwarded. However, you can still use the handset as it only requires Bluetooth for connection to the pump and sensor transmitter. It's important to note that the SIM card only offers coverage within Europe. So if you travel outside Europe, the SIM card will not be connected and the data will not be transferred to your loops. If the SIM card has been disconnected for an extended period, it may not immediately reboot. It will reboot on the first day of the following month. Healthcare providers can access your loops through their respective login credentials, while family members can remotely monitor glucose levels using the Dexcom Follow app, provided that the user has also installed the Dexcom G6 app. Diabeloop provides a unique feature called Privacy Mode, allowing users to opt out of sharing their data for a specific period ranging from 1 hour up to 3 days. It's important to note that when Privacy Mode is activated, the data will not be recoverable in your loops afterward. This aspect should be taken into consideration, especially when using the system for research or study purposes where data retrieval might be required. 2. Indications. The DBLG1 algorithm of Diabeloop is CE labeled for use in individuals with type 1 diabetes who are at least 18 years old. It is suitable for individuals with a daily insulin requirement ranging from 8 to 90 units per day. The system is only compatible with Novorapid pump cards. Please note that Diabeloop does not have an FDA label at this time, and it is not approved for use in pregnancy and during dialysis. 3. Software updates. You may receive automatic algorithm updates for Diabeloop every few months, so don't be surprised. When an update is scheduled, you will receive a notification on your handset informing you that your algorithm will be updated that night. After installation, the handset will reboot and a pop-up message will confirm the completion of the update. Rest assured that this process occurs automatically without any manual intervention required from you. In conclusion, Diabeloop integrates various components to provide automated insulin delivery. With its advanced algorithm and adjustable parameters, Diabeloop provides flexibility to meet individual needs. If you have any questions or concerns, you can seek assistance from the dedicated Facebook group or contact Roche's customer service. Remember, you are not alone in your diabetes management journey, and there are resources available to support you every step of the way.